All right, so you've been looking into these two big ideas, GANI and VUCA, and how they help us make sense of the world. And
Yeah.
we've got your research pile right here, a mix of articles and reports. So
Yeah.
let's dive in and see what we can uncover together.
It is interesting, isn't it? In times of upheaval, we crave frameworks almost like we need something to help us navigate the choppy waters.
Right.
That's where BANI and VUCA come in.
Yeah.
They give us a language to discuss the turbulence we're experiencing.
It does feel like turbulence is the new normal, right? Pandemics, climate change, the political landscape. Even just a few years ago, things felt so much more predictable.
Yeah.
So VUCA, that's the framework that came before being, right?
Yes. VUCA stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous.
Okay.
It emerged back in the 1980s.
Okay.
Imagine the world transitioning out of the Cold War globalization, picking up speed.
Yeah.
It was a time when traditional forecasting methods started to falter.
It makes you wonder if the folks who coined VUCA back then ever imagined just how wild things would get.
Well, one of the articles we're looking at actually argues that VUCA is now the baseline, our everyday reality.
Wow.
And that's where BANI comes in.
Oh, yeah.
It takes things to a whole new level, suggesting that the world isn't just changing rapidly,
Right.
but that the very foundations we rely on are becoming brittle.
BNI as in brittle, anxious, nonlinear, incomprehensible.
Yes.
It almost sounds dystopian.
The term definitely has a certain weight to it.
Yeah.
And one expert even says today's problems aren't merely complex, they're chaotic.
Right.
That's a big statement, but it resonates with how many people are feeling, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. So let's break this down, starting with brittle. What does that mean in a practical sense?
Think about the global supply chain disruptions during the pandemic.
Okay.
Suddenly things we took for granted,
Yeah.
from toilet paper to computer chips, were in short supply.
Right.
This fragility extends beyond physical goods.
Mm.
Institutions, systems, even long-held beliefs can prove brittle under pressure.
Okay, that makes sense. So then there's anxious. It feels like this constant low-grade anxiety has become a collective experience.
One of the sources actually refers to it as ambient anxiety,
Okay.
always present in the background, fueled by information overload and this nagging sense that we're constantly on the verge of the next big disruption.
It's like we're bombarded with news and data, but it often feels more overwhelming than informative, right?
Exactly. And that ties directly into incomprehensible.
Yeah.
We have more access to information than ever before,
Right.
yet it's harder than ever to separate signal from noise, to truly understand what's important.
It's like trying to drink from a fire hose. There's just too much coming at us too fast. All right, let's tackle nonlinear. This one always feels a bit abstract to me.
Think of it like this. In the BANI world, the connection between cause and effect is often obscured.
Okay.
Small actions can have outsized consequences, like the proverbial butterfly flapping its wings and causing a hurricane on the other side of the world.
Right.
COVID-19 is a stark example. A virus emerges in one corner of the globe, and suddenly the entire world is in lockdown. Economies are reeling, and our lives are irrevocably changed.
So it's not just that things are changing faster, it's that the change itself is unpredictable, often emerging from unexpected places. Right.
Precisely. And one of the things that really distinguishes BANI from VUCA is this feeling of foundational instability.
Okay.
It's not just that the future is hard to predict, it's that the present itself feels less stable.
Right.
It's like the rug is constantly being pulled out from under us.
That's a great way to put it. And that instability has huge implications, especially when we think about leadership in a BANI world. I'm curious to hear what the research has to say about that.
That's where things get really interesting. Because how do you lead when the old playbooks no longer apply?
I imagine traditional leadership qualities like decisiveness and strategic planning still matter, but maybe they need to be reinterpreted for a BANI world.
One source uses the analogy of a jazz musician,
Okay.
someone who knows the basic scales and chords, but is also able to improvise and adapt to the flow of the music.
Yeah.
That's what BANI demands of leaders.
Okay.
A balance of structure and flexibility, a willingness to experiment and make decisions in the midst of uncertainty.
So it's not about having all the answers,
Right.
but being comfortable with asking the right questions.
Exactly. And one of the articles highlights the importance of what they call horizon scanning,
Okay.
constantly looking for emerging trends and potential disruptions, even if they seem far off or unlikely.
It's like being a chess player who can anticipate their opponent's move several steps ahead, right? But instead of a chessboard, it's the entire world.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And this ties into another crucial leadership quality in a BANI world, empathy.
Okay.
Because when the ground is constantly shifting beneath our feet,
Yeah.
people crave connection and reassurance.
It makes sense if you're feeling anxious and overwhelmed. You want a leader who understands what you're going through, not someone who just barks orders from on high.
One source puts it this way. In a BANI-Welt world, leadership is less about command and control and more about fostering psychological safety. That means creating an environment where people feel comfortable speaking up, sharing their concerns, and even admitting when they don't have all the answers.
So it's less about projecting an image of unshakable confidence and more about being authentic and vulnerable.
That's a key point. Leaders who can acknowledge their own limitations, who aren't afraid to say, I don't know, but let's figure this out together, they tend to build stronger, more resilient teams.
Because ultimately, you can't navigate BANI alone, right? It requires collaboration, diverse perspectives, and a willingness to learn from each other's experiences.
The research strongly emphasizes the need for what they call distributed leadership,
Okay.
empowering individuals at all levels of an organization to take initiative, make decisions, and contribute their unique skills and knowledge.
So it's less about top-down hierarchies and more about building networks of interconnected leaders, each with their own area of expertise.
That's the idea. And this ties into another fascinating concept that comes up in the research.
Okay.
Anti-fragility.
Okay, I've heard that term before,
Yeah.
but I'm not entirely sure what it means in this context.
In a nutshell, anti-fragility means not just surviving disruption, but actually thriving and growing stronger because of it.
Interesting.
It's about building systems and structures that can adapt and evolve in response to stress and uncertainty.
So like a muscle that gets stronger through repeated exercise.
Precisely. And when you apply this concept to leadership, it means creating a culture of continuous learning, experimentation, and adaptation.
Okay.
It's about encouraging people to take calculated risks, embrace failure as a learning opportunity, and constantly seek out new information and perspectives.
It sounds like leading in a BANI world requires a pretty fundamental shift in mindset, both for individual leaders and for organizations as a whole. But where do you even begin to cultivate that kind of anti-fragility? The research must offer some practical advice on that, right?
It does. And one of the most surprising insights is that it often starts with small, seemingly insignificant changes.
Small changes leading to big results.
Oh.
Sounds very BANI-esque. Give us some examples of what those small changes might look like.
One source suggests something as simple as encouraging more water cooler conversations, informal exchanges where people can share ideas, vent frustrations, and build connections outside of formal meetings and structures.
It's like acknowledging that sometimes the most innovative ideas come from unexpected places, not just from brainstorming sessions or strategic planning retreats.
Exactly. And another simple but powerful suggestion is to encourage more cross-pollination between different departments and teams.
So breaking down silos and fostering collaboration across traditional organizational boundaries.
Yes, because in a BANI world, the most pressing challenges often require interdisciplinary solutions.
I can see how that would be beneficial.
Yeah.
You get fresh perspectives, new ways of thinking, and potentially even more creative solutions that you might not have discovered otherwise.
And perhaps most importantly, the research emphasizes the need for what one source calls radical transparency.
Okay.
This means being honest about the challenges you're facing, sharing information openly, and even admitting when you don't have all the answers.
That sounds like a pretty big leap of faith for some organizations, especially those that are used to operating in a more hierarchical, top-down fashion. But I can also see how it would build trust and create a sense of shared purpose. If everyone is in the loop and understands the bigger picture, they're more likely to be engaged and invested in finding solutions.
That's exactly the point. And one of the sources even goes so far as to say that in a BANI world, transparency is the new currency of leadership.
Wow, that's a powerful statement. So it's not just about being ethical or responsible, it's about recognizing that transparency is essential for survival, even for success in a BANI environment.
Absolutely. And it makes sense when you think about it. In a world where information is constantly flowing, trying to control or suppress it is ultimately a losing battle.
It's like trying to hold back the tide. Better to learn how to surf the waves. Speaking of surfing waves, I'm curious to hear more about how these BANI leadership principles apply to individuals, not just to organizations. Because even if you're not in a formal leadership position, you're still navigating this chaotic world and trying to make sense of it all.
That's a great point. And the research actually offers some really valuable insights for individuals as well.
So much of what we've talked about today feels kind of macro, systems leadership, global trends. But how does someone, let's say, just trying to get through their workday, how do they apply these BANI ideas?
One of the most helpful things I took away from the research was this emphasis on cultivating a BANI mindset.
Okay.
It's not about mastering a specific skill set,
Right.
but rather developing a way of thinking
Yeah.
that allows you to thrive in this environment.
Okay, so what does that BANI mindset actually look like in practice?
It starts with embracing what one of the sources calls active uncertainty. Instead of trying to eliminate uncertainty, which is impossible in a BANI world, you acknowledge it, accept it, and even use it to your advantage.
So it's like turning a perceived weakness into a strength.
Exactly. And this ties into another key aspect of the BANI mindset, adaptability.
Okay.
Being able to adjust your plans, your strategies, even your entire outlook on life in response to new information and changing circumstances.
Yeah, makes sense. If the only constant is change, then the ability to adapt becomes paramount.
The research even suggests that adaptability is the new IQ.
Hmm.
It's no longer enough to be intelligent. You
Right.
need to be able to apply that intelligence in a constantly evolving context.
So it's not just about what you know, but how you learn, unlearn, and relearn.
That's a great way to put it. And one practical tip that comes up repeatedly in the research is to focus on developing T-shaped skills.
Okay, T-shaped skills. That's a new one. Break it down for us.
Imagine the letter T.
Okay.
The vertical line represents deep expertise in a particular field, while the horizontal line represents a broader understanding of other disciplines and a willingness to collaborate across boundaries.
So you have your core area of expertise,
Yes.
but you're also curious about other fields, and you can connect the dots between different areas of knowledge.
Precisely. And in a BANI world, this kind of cross-disciplinary thinking becomes increasingly valuable.
Because the most complex problems rarely fit neatly into one category, right? They require a more holistic, interconnected approach.
That's the key takeaway. And the research suggests that developing these T-shaped skills can help you to be more adaptable, more resilient, and more likely to thrive in a BANI environment.
So it's not just about becoming an expert in one thing, but also about being a generalist, a lifelong learner who can adapt and apply their knowledge in a variety of contexts.
That's the essence of it. And one final thought that really struck me from the research is this idea that in a BANI world, we need to shift from a problem-solving mindset to a solution-finding mindset.
Ooh, I like that solution finding instead of problem solving. What's the difference?
Problem-solving often focuses on identifying the root cause of a problem,
Okay.
which can be helpful in a stable, predictable environment.
Right.
But in a BANI world where cause and effect are often obscured, this approach can lead to analysis paralysis.
You're stuck trying to diagnose the problem instead of taking action, right?
Exactly. Solution finding, on the other hand, is about focusing on what's possible, on generating creative solutions, and on taking action even when you don't have all the answers.
It's about experimentation, iteration, and a willingness to embrace failure as part of the process.
That's a crucial element of it. And the research suggests that this shift in mindset from problem solving to solution finding can be incredibly empowering, especially in a BANI world that can often feel overwhelming and disheartening.
It's about recognizing that even in the midst of chaos and uncertainty, we still have agency. We still have the power to shape our own futures.
That's the ultimate message of hope that I take away from all of this research. BANI is not a prediction of doom and gloom. It's a call to action, an invitation to become more adaptable, more resilient, and more creative in the face of an ever-changing world.
And perhaps to even find a sense of excitement and possibility in the midst of the unknown. We've covered a lot of ground today, from VUCA to BANI, from leadership in a chaotic world to cultivating a BANI mindset for yourself. But here's one final thought to leave you with. The world is constantly evolving, and so are the frameworks we use to understand it. So what will be the next evolution of these ideas, and how will you adapt and thrive in a future that's likely to be even more complex and unpredictable than the one we're facing today?